We were continuing with the cerebral cortex, and today's lecture is on temporal lobe. The functional areas in temporal lobe, on the upper side, on the anterior side, the auditory sensory area is there, and surrounding that the audito-psychic area is there, and then the lower part temporal adversive area is there. Auditory sensory area is area 41 and 42 according to Brodmann. This is anterior auditosensory area 41 and 42 are present over the anterior transverse temporal gyri. This is in the floor of the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus. In the floor of the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus, on the surface of anterior transverse temporal gyri, area 41 and 42 are present, and some of it is also present on the superior temporal gyrus. If you see the histological structure, both the granular cell layers are thick and densely packed granular cells are present. The cells may form the longitudinal columns at the right angle to the surface, and large number of the fibers are present in the bilargar layer. If you see the connections of this temporal lobe, area 41 and 42, this sends the impulses and receives the impulses from these areas. One is medial geniculate body. Auditory radiations comes from medial geniculate body to area 41 and 42. Then inferior colliculus receives the impulses from the internal capsule, and the pulvinar and thalamus gives fibers to area 41 and 42. The fibers from 41 and 42 area also comes back to the thalamus. The lesion of the unilateral lesion on one side shows the difficulty in locating the source of sound. The unilateral lesion of area 41 and 42 shows difficulty in locating the source of sound. What is the effect of stimulation of this area? Stimulation of area 41 and 42 causes hallucinations such as humming, whistling, buzzing, ringing of bells. So all these hallucinations or this voice of humming, whistling, buzzing and ringing bells can be found if you electrically stimulate this area 41 and 42. Functions of this audio sensory area, this is receiving and appreciating the auditory sounds. So it receives the impulses and appreciates the auditory sounds, and this is important auditory center, and this is center for loudness of the sound, pitch of the sound, quality of the sound, character of the sound, direction of the sound. So auditosensory area receives the signals from the 8th cranial nerve, and this appreciate the sound. This is center for hearing the loudness, pitch, quality, character and direction of the sound. All are because of this area 41 and 42. The cochlear representation in this is that at the apical turn of the cochlea, the low pitch sounds are there, which are represented in the posteromedial auditosensory area. The basal turn of the cochlea is represented and represent the high pitched sounds, which are represented in the anterolateral auditosensory area. Then audito-psychic area is present at the apex and anterior base. Then is the audito-psychic area 22. This area 22 is present in the superior temporal gyrus. If you see the histological structure, this is same as auditosensory area. The granular cell layer is well developed, but this is thinner as compared to area 41 and 42. The pyramidal cell layer is thicker. The lesions of area 23 shows unilateral lesions, shows the difference in interpretation of the sound. The subject cannot understand the spoken words. He can hear the words but cannot understand the spoken words. He can hear but unable to understand the meaning of the words. So that is called as word deafness. Lesions of area 23 causes word deafness. The further analysis of sound is not there. The subject is able to hear the sound but he is unable to understand the meaning of the words. So that is word deafness. He can speak with innumerable mistakes. Whatever he can hear, he can repeat and he can speak. But because of the word deafness, he cannot hear and he cannot understand properly what he has heard. So when he speaks, he makes the innumerable mistakes. Function of this audito-psychic area is interpretation of the sound. Interpretation of the sound in case of origin of the sound, source of the sound, and differentiation of the sound. And depending on these, there occurs the perception of concrete idea about the sound. So, audito-psychic area, interpretation of the sound, it gives idea about the origin of the sound, source of the sound, differentiation of the sound, and depending on these, there occurs perception of concrete idea about the sound. Area 21 and 22, these are present in the middle and inferior temporal gyri. The structure is same as audito-psychic area. These are connected, area 21 and 22 are connected with area 19 and other areas, and they send the temporopontine fibers to the pons. The lesion here will cause the psychic disturbances. The temporal adversive field is present, which is a small area posterior to the area 22, and the motor activity, for the motor activity, speech area is there. Then center for equilibrium, posterior part of the superior temporal convolutions show the center for equilibrium. Stimulation of this center causes feeling of dizziness, swaying of the body, falling, rotational feeling. So center for equilibrium is present in the posterior part of the superior temporal gyrus, and stimulation of this area shows the subject feels the dizziness, swaying, falling or rotational feeling. The center for smell is there in the uncus, which is anterior part of hippocampus, which is rounded and forms the uncus. This is center for smell. The anterior hippocampal gyrus amygdaloid nucleus also help in the smell. The stimulation of this part of the brain, that is uncus, hippocampal gyrus and amygdaloid nucleus, causes the sensation of olfactory hallucinations. Temporal lobe syndrome. If you bilaterally remove the temporal lobe along with the amygdaloid nucleus and uncus in the monkey, what happens? So bilateral removal of the temporal lobe including amygdaloid nucleus and uncus. So in monkeys it is said that they show the emotional changes. This is because of the removal of the amygdala. Then they shows the hypersexuality. This hypersexuality is mainly because of the removal of the piriform cortex. Then they show the visual agnosia. This is because of the neocortex is lost or temporal cortex is lost. Then these monkeys show the tendency to examine all the objects with the mouth. They change their dietary habits. Their tendency to attend every visual stimuli is there, and they show the agnosia, that is auditory and tactile field. So all these things happen with the bilateral removal of the temporal lobe in monkeys. Emotional changes are there, hypersexuality is there, visual agnosia is there, tendency to examine all objects with the mouth is there, change in dietary habit is there, tendency to attend every visual stimuli is there, and agnosia, auditory and tactile field is there. What happens with the removal of temporal lobe in the man? In the man, the disturbance of speech is there, recall of expression may be there. The auditory disturbances are there, which shows the hallucination, that is tinnitus, seizure, etc. Disturbance of the taste sensation is there, unpleasant taste sensation is there, disturbance of smell sensation is there, again unpleasant smell sensation is there. The subject may have a dreamy state, he failed to observe the reality and goes into dreams, that is also called as psychomotor seizure. Then disturbance in vision is there with the visual hallucinations. It may be associated with the homonymous hemianopia if the lateral geniculate body is damaged, affected. The loss of memory is there. So removal of bitemporal cortex in the human beings, there occurs disturbance of speech, auditory disturbances, hallucinations are there, disturbance or the unpleasant taste sensation is there, unpleasant smell sensation is there, subject may go into dreamy states, that is psychomotor seizure, distant vision hallucinations are there, and the loss of memory is there. All these are found in the bitemporal resection of the bitemporal cortex. Other areas of the brain are the cingulate gyrus. In the cingulate gyrus, the structure area 24, 23 and 31 are important. First we take area 24. This is present on the anterior half of the cingulate gyrus. The cells are less in granular layer. If you see the functional area of this area 24, this receives afferent from thalamus as well as hypothalamus, and this area 24 also gives efferent fibers or motor fibers to the caudate nucleus, area 31, 32 and the prefrontal lobe. So it receives impulses from thalamus and hypothalamus and gives efferent impulses to the caudate nucleus, area 31, 32 and prefrontal area. If you electrically stimulate, that may cause the changes in the blood pressure and changes in the pulse rate. The ablation or removal of this part, area 24, causes loss of fear, loss of anxiety. The animal becomes tame, apathetic to the fellow environment. This is an integral part of the frontal lobe, and severance of the connections may give the relief in the mental state. Area 23, this lies just posterior to area 24 in the lower half of the cingulate gyrus. If you see the structure, the granular cell layer is well developed. The function is not exactly known. It is that anterior nucleus of the thalamus gives fibers to this area 23. Then suppressor areas in the cerebral cortex, the narrow strip of cortex on the anterior border of motor area 4, a small area called as 4S area, narrow strip of cortex just in front of the larger area 4 is 4S area. On electrical stimulation of this 4S area, this causes suppression of all the motor activities. The other suppressor areas in the cortex are area 2S, 8S, 19S and 24S. So all these on stimulation causes suppression of the cortex. The function of these areas is that causes the central inhibitory control. Central inhibitory control of the cortex is through areas 2S, 4S, 8S, 24S and 19S. The central inhibitory control, how this occurs? The central inhibitory control from cortex and subcortical areas facilitate the motor activity. The inhibitory discharge will regulate or modulate the purposeful act to the lower motor neuron by multisynaptic pathway. The central inhibitory area cortex, that is area 2S, 4S, 8S, 19S, and these suppressor areas will cause the cortex and subcortical levels of the extrapyramidal tract mainly to facilitate the motor activity and give the inhibitory discharge, so that this inhibitory discharge can regulate the purposeful act through the multisynaptic pathway over the lower motor neuron, that is the last motor neuron in the motor pathway, that is the anterior horn cell. So anterior horn cell is inhibited, or that is regulated or modulated, so that the act becomes purposeful. Then cortical inhibitory areas or suppressor areas 4, 2, 2s, 4s, 8s, 19s and 24s. These supply fibers through cortical subcortical areas to inhibitory reticular formation, and from this reticular formation inhibitory fibers go to the spinal motor neurons, that is anterior horn cells, and the inhibition can occur. So this inhibitory cortex act through the multisynaptic pathway as well as through the reticular formation to cause inhibition of the final cell, that is anterior horn cell, in the spinal cord, and can modulate the activity, motor activity. Striatal inhibitory areas are, that is from 4s the fibers go to the globus pallidus, putamen and caudate nucleus. The fibers from the globus pallidus, putamen and caudate nucleus go to the 4s area, that is inhibitory area, and bulboreticular inhibitory area from anterior part of the pons and from the medulla. So reticular area from the pons and medulla send the fibers through the reticulospinal nerves to the spinal motor neuron or anterior horn cell and can inhibit this spinal motor neuron. Tonically active, this contracts the equally and tonically active respiratory pathway discharges. Cerebral inhibitory area, in the anterior part of the cerebellum, strong suppressor area is there in the cerebellum, and this through the bulboreticular striatal pathway will again send the inhibitory signals to spinal motor neuron. So anterior part of cerebellar cortex, it is again a strong suppressor area, send the fibers to the reticulum and the striatal nucleus, and then through them send the inhibitory fibers to the motor neuron. Extrapyramidal areas. The cortical extrapyramidal areas are 4s, 6, 8, 2, 19 and 24s. These extrapyramidal areas, that is 6, 8, 2, 9, 24s, exert the influence over the extrapyramidal pathway through the corticopontine fibers. From the cortex, the corticopontine fibers for extrapyramidal width carries fibers to the pons, and then from the pons and other lower centers, these are carried to the anterior horn cells. Now I will repeat whole of the cortex through the diagrams and show you the different areas and functions. This is the histological structure of the cortex, showing the 6 different layers. The Golgi stain is there, then last one Wiegert stain is there, and Nessels stain is there. You can see the outermost layer is the molecular layer. The second layer from the outermost is external granular layer containing granular cells. Then external pyramidal cell layer is there containing medium and small size pyramidal cells. Then internal granular layer is there, contain again granular cells which are compactly packed. Then internal pyramidal cell containing large bed cells are there. This is also called as ganglion cell layer. Then the innermost layer is there, and that contains only the few fusiform cells and mainly the fibers. So these are the 6 layers of the cortex from outside to inside. If you see the frontal cortex, you can see the bluish colored frontal cortex, greenish colored parietal cortex. Behind this parietal cortex, the reddish brown occipital cortex, and just in front of the separating the frontal and parietal cortex by the lateral sulcus. In the lower part you can see the light brown color, that is temporal cortex. So you can see the frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal cortex. These are the different areas of the cortex. In the frontal cortex you can see the central sulcus. This is between the dark blue color and the green color, and just in front of that dark blue color is area 4. This area 4 is a primary motor cortex in the precentral gyrus. Just in front of the central sulcus is the vertically placed central gyrus. The central gyrus, as well as a small part of the superior, medial and inferior frontal gyri, form the primary motor cortex. Area 4 is there. Just in front of the area 4, the area 6 and 8 are there, and just in front of them the prefrontal lobe is there. Then you can see in the lower part of this dark blue area, that is area 4, Broca's area is there, which is area for speech sensation. Then you can see in the lower part orbitofrontal cortex is there, and olfactory bulb is there for smell sensations. These are the different areas you can see in the just in front of the central sulcus. Area 4, that is motor cortex, is there, and you can see the supplementary motor areas again which are present here just in front of them. The premotor cortex, area 6 is present, and just in front of that area 8 will be there. Now the pyramidal tract arises mainly from the area 4, but the fibers also arises from the area 6. Some of the fibers also arise from area 3, 1, 2 and 5 and 7. So this sensory cortex also called as sensory motor cortex. Just in front of the area in the lower part you can see the prefrontal cortex or frontal lobe is there. Just behind the central sulcus you can see the area 3, 1 and 2, which are primary sensory areas or primary somatic areas. Just behind them you can see the parietal cortex, the supramarginal area, area 5 and 7, and just below that the marginal gyrus is there. So you can see the sensory areas 3, 1, 2, 5 and 7 here. This is the representation in the cortex for the motor as well as in the sensory cortex. Representation of the body is upside down. Below the hip joint, knee joint, ankle joint, toes, sacral defecation reflex and urinary bladder reflex are deep inside in the represented in the paracentral lobule. In the vertex and downwards they are represented as hip, trunk, shoulder, elbow, wrist, then fingers and thumb given much larger area, then neck, and then the head is given, the eyelids, then lips, tongue, larynx, pharynx. So the mouth and the hand are given much larger representation because they require the fine movement. The same type of the arrangement is there in the sensory cortex also. Here you can again see the central sulcus, and behind that you can see the primary sensory area or primary somatosensory cortex, which is green color, and behind that you can see the parietal lobe, that is somatosensory area or association cortex area of the cortex. This is primary gustatory area or area for the taste sensation, that is light green color. This is again diagram showing the sensory areas and somatic sensory area 2 at the lower part you can see. Bluish is sensory area 1, that is given additional representation in sensory area 2. Here you can see the occipital lobe, the dark chocolate brown primary visual cortex, area 17 is there. Surrounding that area 18 and 19 are there, that is visual association cortex. So in the occipital lobe, at the occipital pole, the visual area 17 is there, and surrounding that visual area 18 and 19 are there. Area 17 is primary visual cortex, striate area, surrounding that area 19, area 18 and 19 are parastriate and peristriate areas. These are visual association areas which further analyze the visual signals. Here you can see the primary auditory cortex, area 41 and 42 in the yellow color. Then you can see the area 23, then 22, 21, etc. So primary auditory cortex is there for loudness of sound, for pitch of sound, for additional things of this, and then the subsequent sound is analyzed in the surrounding cortex, area 23, 21 and 22. So primary olfactory cortex is there, and then the impulses are conducted from the ear by the eighth nerve to these areas. In the lower part of the frontal lobe, you can see the small olfactory bulb is there, and that is for the sensory sensation, olfactory sensation. This is again, you can see all the areas. The bluish colored area 4, then area 6 and 8, then frontal lobe is there in front. In the lower part you can see the Broca's area. In the posterior part you can see the sensory area. Dark colored is primary sensory area, light colored is associative sensory area. Then in occipital lobe you can see the primary visual area, then area 18 and 19 association visual areas. Then in the temporal lobe you can see the auditory area and association auditory areas, etc. This you can see the functions of different lobes. Primary motor area, just in front of the central sulcus, you can see the primary motor area, and just in front of that is area 6, that is supplementary and the premotor area. Just in front of that you can see the prefrontal association area, and removal of that will cause the frontal lobe syndrome. In the lower part you can see the limbic association areas are there. In the parietal lobe you can see the first one just behind the central sulcus, the primary sensory area is there. In the lower part of this, association areas are there. Just behind that, secondary somatic sensations are there, and behind you can see the primary visual area, then secondary visual area is there. And here you can see in the temporal lobe primary auditory area and secondary auditory area. All the larger parts in the center, just behind the center of the brain, they join together to give you a part of parietal lobe, a part of occipital lobe, and a part of temporal lobe. These are parieto-occipito-temporal association areas, also called as Wernicke's areas. You can see the bluish motor area. This is area 4, 6 and 8. Then prefrontal lobe, which is there for planning of the complex movements, elaboration of the thoughts. This takes place in the prefrontal lobe. Word formation takes place as the Broca's area. Then somatosensory area, light pink color you can see. Just behind that is spatial coordinates of the body from surroundings. In the posterior part of the occipital lobe, vision is there, which is further, visual signals are further processing of the words takes place. In the lower part you can see the naming of object is there. In the temporal part you can see the auditory area. Then the lower part you can see this may be responsible for the behavior, emotion, motivation. Because if you remove this part of the brain in the human beings or in the monkeys, you can see the behavioral changes, emotional changes are there. So this is limbic association area for the behavior, emotion and motivation. And the language comprehension area, intelligence area in the center of all the sensory areas of parietal cortex, occipital cortex and temporal cortex is there. The language comprehension intelligence occurs here. When you say anything to the small child, to say papa or mama, he will hear the sound through auditory area, then that sound goes through the association areas, and then this comes to this language comprehension areas. In the same way, from the vision, if the subject sees the written or printed words, he can see the words. The further analysis takes place in the associated cortex, and further language comprehension takes place, and the subject is able to see A for apple, and he will be then tell language comprehension takes place here at this intelligence area, and this will send the signals, and then the word formation takes place at the Broca's area, and the movement of lips, tongue, pharynx, larynx is there, so that the subject is able to speak. Here in the lower part, you can see the lower part of the brain. Facial recognition areas are there. You can see the temporal lobe on both the sides, and facial recognition area is there. Here you can again see the motor cortex, primary sensory cortex, somatic interpretative areas, visual interpretative areas, auditory interpretative areas, and finally all the sensory areas. The somatic sensory as well as visual and auditory sensory areas, and in the Wernicke's areas. And this Wernicke's areas is important. All the signals comes to this Wernicke's area. This will send the signals. So suppose the subject is able to hear Papa, he will receive the signals at the auditory area. Auditory area will send the signal to the Wernicke's area. This will send the signal to the Broca's area. Broca's area will send the signals to the muscles of the lips, to the motor neurons which supplies to the pharynx, larynx, lips and tongue, and they will send the motor signals, so that the contraction of those lips, tongue, pharynx, larynx occurs, and the subject is able to speak. So from the word which the subject can hear, these are producing the signals which goes to the Wernicke's area, then to the Broca's area, then to the sensory motor cortex, and then the subject is able to speak the word which can hear, which he can repeat, like a small child repeats Papa or Mama. Here, speaking of the written word, you have written A on the paper. You can visualize with your eyes the A with the primary visual cortex. Further analysis takes place in the secondary visual area, and then the impulse goes to the Wernicke's area. This will send the impulse to the Broca's area. This Broca's area will send the impulse to the motor neurons of the cerebral cortex, so that the subject is able to speak. So visually seen word may be printed or may be written. These are further analyzed through the Wernicke's areas, then through the Broca's areas. The impulses go to the motor cortex, and the subject is able to speak the words which he has seen.